Hello, hello, hello. Happy Monday. Happy new week. Happy new week, everybody. How was your weekend? As I fix my hair. How was your weekend, everybody? As you're coming in, let me know where you're watching from. Do a quick tech check. Yeah, can you see and hear me okay? We are about to get into this one. We are about to get into it, y'all. Let me pull up my notes. Let me pull my notes. All right, listen, I want to start this conversation by asking a question before we really get into today's episode, okay? How many side hustles have you started? Drop your number in the chat. I'm not talking about side hustles that you've researched or that you saved 100 reels about. I mean, how many side hustles have you started over your life, over the last 5 years? How many side hustles? I'm talking about the Etsy shop, the planner that you were going to sell on Amazon, the candle business that you were going to start, the I'm going to start a blog phase that you had, the course you bought about drop shipping that is still sitting in a folder on your laptop. If you added up every single one of those, what would that number be? Drop it in the chat. Is it 3? Is it 5? Is it 9? And here's the second part of that question. And this is the part that matters most. Of all those side hustles, how many of them ever made you a consistent dollar? Of all the side hustles that you've ever started, how many of them have ever made you a consistent dollar? I don't want you to count that one sale that you made to your best friend or to your auntie, or not. I don't want you to count the $40 on that one Etsy order that you had back in 2021. I'm talking about consistent, repeatable. I can count on this money. Because for most women I talk to, that number is 0. And I want to be really clear about something right out of the gate, because I think this is where everybody gets it wrong before they even start to have this conversation. That $0, it has nothing to do with laziness. It has nothing to do with your lack of discipline. It has nothing to do with the fact that you feel like you're starting too late in this game, or you're missing some secret entrepreneurial gene that other people have that you weren't born with. The $0 of consistent income, it exists because something that nobody ever explained to you. And I'm going to spend our time together in this episode. I want to explain it. So, welcome back to another episode of Nick at Noon. I am Nick Scott. I am the founder and CEO of Her Income Edit. We are an online education platform where we help professional women turn their existing skills, and we help them build coaching income, digital products, and a second stream of income that doesn't depend on one paycheck from one employer. So if you haven't already, I encourage you to go get your notebook and your pen, because we are going to be getting into something today that will hopefully reorganize how you think about every single side hustle attempt you've ever made, including the ones that didn't work out for you. And if you have any questions or comments or feedback as we're going through the content, please feel free to drop it in the comments and I will get to them periodically. I'll be switching back and forth from my notes to the live screen chat. And share this video with your biz bestie. Text the link to your friend who's been thinking about starting something for the last 2 years, because we are about to get into this thing, okay? Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. So here is something we need to start saying out loud, because nobody really does. And that is, there is an entire graveyard of side hustles buried in most women's group chats. And it has nothing to do with how capable those women are. Because some of the most capable women I know have a side hustle graveyard with 5 headstones in it. The candle business, the Pinterest management thing that you were going to do, the I'm going to flip clothes on Poshmark era that you may have gone through, the course you bought and never opened up past module 2. Listen, Every single one of those dies, and every time it does, it takes a little something with it. And it's not just the money you spent starting that particular side hustle, it takes a little bit of your belief that this is even possible for you. By the third or fourth attempt, you're not thinking that idea didn't work. By the third or fourth attempt, you're starting to think, I'm just not the kind of person that this works out for. And that thought right there is the most expensive thing in this entire conversation. And it's costing women more than any failed side hustle ever did. So I want to offer you just a different perspective on the side hustle graveyard, because the problem is not the ideas. It's not the ideas themselves. Most side hustles don't fail because the women running them wasn't smart enough, or wasn't hardworking enough, or she didn't want it bad enough. Side hustles fail because they were built on a foundation that was never designed to hold weight in the first place. Ask me how I know. You can be the most disciplined, most consistent, most strategic woman in the room and still watch a side hustle fall because the issue was never your effort. It was the structure you poured that effort into. And if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. Effort poured into the wrong structure, it doesn't build anything. It just exhausts you while you're literally standing in place. And that right there is the truest story behind most of those side hustle headstones. It's not a lack of hustle, it's a lack of structure that was never really built to convert. Okay. And I also want to push back on something else that gets constantly repeated in this space because I feel like it's doing real damage. And that is this idea of people telling you, just start, just put yourself out there, just pick something and go. And on the surface, I feel like that sounds very encouraging, right? But in practice, it's how so many women end up building a side hustle around the wrong thing. Because when you hear just start, or if you actually just start, it skips the one question that determines whether or not something makes you any money in the first place. So just start, just put yourself out there, just pick something and go. It skips the question of what people are already reaching for their wallet to solve. What is the problem? What is making people pull out their credit card and pay? It skips that question because most side hustles, they're getting built backwards. So a woman will pick something she enjoys or something that looks good on Instagram or something she saw work for somebody else. And then she spends months trying to convince people that they need whatever that thing is, right? And that is an uphill climb, uphill battle all day, every single one of the days, because you're not meeting a need that already exists. You're trying to manufacture a need. So compare that to a side hustle that gets built around something that people are already frustrated about, something that people are already losing sleep over. People are already asking their friends about this thing at brunch. That side hustle, it doesn't need convincing, it needs visibility. And those are two completely different jobs. And one of them is much, much harder than the other. And here's something else that I want you to remember as we talk about this. You don't sell people on a problem. That's not how you make money in any business. You don't sell people on a problem. What you do is you find people who already have a problem. So the candle business has to convince someone that they need a new candle. But a coaching offer that solves a problem that somebody already has, like how to negotiate a raise, how to navigate a layoff, or how to get unstuck in their career, it doesn't have to convince anybody of anything. Because the need is already there before you showed up on their timeline, right? So your only job right now in this particular example is being the answer to a question that somebody was already asking. Are y'all picking up what I'm putting down? Give this video a thumbs up if this is resonating with you. Because that distinction alone, it explains more side hustle failures than almost anything else that I can tell you today. That right there, hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. That right there will explain more side hustle failures than anything else that I'm going to tell you today. Okay. Now, let me talk about something else that kills side hustle momentum, and it has nothing to do with motivation. Because let's be clear, you have been motivated, you have been hustling your whole life. Every day I'm hustling, right? Listen, a lot of side hustles hit an invisible ceiling. And the women who are running these side hustles, they assume the ceiling means that you're doing something wrong. So then you start second guessing your pricing, you start second guessing your content, you start second guessing the thing that you're offering, or you start second guessing yourself, right? And meanwhile, the issue is that you built something with a structural cap that was built into it from the very first day you built it. So think about reselling clothes online, right? There's this new commercial that I see all the time, Vinted. It used to be Poshmark, all these places where you can resell clothes, right? Or what about doing hair on the side because you know how to braid? Or maybe hourly freelancing because you're like a graphic designer or, a copywriter or something like that. Every single one of those things that I just said, reselling clothes, doing hair, hourly freelancing, or whatever the thing is, all of those trades time directly for money in a 1-to-1 ratio. So you sell one item, you get paid for that item one time. So you do one client's hair and you get paid that one time you do that client's hair. And so there's a ceiling on how much income that structure can ever produce because the only way to make more is to do more. And there are only so many hours in a day, so many hours in a week. And when you're not working, when you're not, taking care of your family and doing the things that need to be done. So what I'm describing here isn't a hustle problem, it's a math problem. And no amount of effort can change math. So if you do 100 heads of hair, and how I don't know how long does it take to do somebody's hair? I know when I go get my hair done, it takes about 3 hours, right? So hair is going to take you 300 hours, like period. There's no way around it. So that is a math problem. Now I want you to compare that to a model where what your packaged experience, your framework, your way of helping somebody get unstuck, how that can be sold to more than one person without you personally being in the room for every single transaction, right? So go back to these 100 heads of hair, 300 hours, and you have to be there. Whereas if you take your skills or your knowledge or your experience or your framework or your way of helping somebody get unstuck, you can sell that to more than one person at a time without you personally being physically there for every single transaction. Like a digital product doesn't need you to physically remake it every single time somebody buys it, right? You make it once and it sells on repeat. A coaching framework that you've built once can serve a client it can serve one client today, it can serve the next client tomorrow, it can serve client after client without you reinventing the entire process from scratch every time, right? And this is the part that changes everything for women who have been side hustling instead of using their leverage. Because time for money side hustles, they ask you to multiply hours that you don't have. Skills-based income, it asks you to multiply something and you build it once. And I want you to think about that because it changes the entire conversation about why some side hustles stall at $200 extra a month and others become a legitimate second stream of income that moves the needle for you, for your life, for your future, for your family, and for your legacy. And I want to be specific about why this matters so much for women who already have a demanding 9 to 5, because the math gets even more unforgiving when you only have a handful of hours left each week, right? So if your side income is capped at one transaction per hour of your time, and you only have 6 or 8 hours a week to give after work, after your family, after your community obligations, after your church obligations, and after everything else you have going on in your life, there is a hard limit on what that side hustle can ever become. And it doesn't matter how hard you work within those 6 to 8 hours that you have extra every week. There's a cap, there's a limit. Like you could be the most efficient person alive and you're still going to hit the ceiling because the structure itself was never designed to grow past a certain point. Skills based income, it doesn't ask the same question of your calendar or your time. A framework you build once, a coaching process that you create once, a digital product that you make once, it keeps being available to sell again and again and again without you rebuilding it from scratch every single time for every single buyer. And that means the same 6 to 8 hours a week that I was just talking about, it can produce something that compounds instead of something that simply repeats itself. So you're not trading more hours for more income. You're building something once and letting it keep working long after that hour is over. And that difference alone, y'all, that is why two women can put in the exact same amount of effort every week and end up in two completely different financial positions a year from now. Because it's not about who is working harder. It's about which structure that effort was poured into, right? So I know for me, when I thought about what it is that I wanted to do alongside of my job before I got laid off, right? I mean, you know the story. I started building Her Income Edit last summer while I was working full time. When I initially got into coaching back in 2019, I also did it alongside my 9 to 5. But when I started thinking about what it is that I wanted to do, because I knew I wanted to do something, I just didn't know exactly what that something was, but I knew that I wanted to do something. And I like to do a lot of things. Like one thing that always came to my mind, hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining and thanks for the love on YouTube. One thing that I really love to do and I'm really good at is making a pot of gumbo. I don't care who you are. You cannot out gumbo pot me. You can't do it. Seafood gumbo is what I make. It is my specialty. We have been making gumbo in my family for 5 generations. I am the 5th generation. My daughters are 6. Okay. 5 generations. You cannot out gumbo me. One thing that I have always wanted to do was sell my gumbo, right? And so when I was thinking about what it is that I wanted to do, of course, gumbo came to mind because you can't out gumbo me, period. And I'm like, man, there's no good gumbo in Denver. This thing would hit, right? But then I started thinking about the time that it takes to make that gumbo, the ingredients, the high quality ingredients that I use. And so I'm like, okay, ingredients cost, my time costs, and I'm looking at what other people are selling this gumbo for. And I'm like, there's just no way that I can recoup there's no return on my investment if I do gumbo. So it's like, okay, well, I'll just keep making the gumbo for my family and friends or whatever. Something else that I really like to do, y'all see it behind me. That's a heat press back there. I'm very creative. This is a craft room. You see all my craft supplies behind me. I love to craft. Of course, I thought about an Etsy store because I'm like, you know what? I'm doing this anyway. Why don't I just, get on Etsy and sell those things? But again, it was my time that I'm like, I am fiercely protective of the time that I have. I'm working a full-time job. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. Even though my kids are adults, I'm still very much actively and presently in their lives, right? So I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I have community obligations, like I have a whole full life. So I'm thinking about the things that I want to do alongside the job. And I consistently came back to skills-based income streams. Why? because the structure matters. Like, I'm already trading time for money at my job, right? Like, there's a cap. I'm trading my time and I get paid. If I decided that I wanted to sell t-shirts or hats or whatever the thing is with my little Cricut and my heat press, how much time is that going to take? I don't want to spend my precious hours outside of my job doing something that's not going to truly position me and my family and my future for financial independence. And so that's where coaching came into the picture for me personally. And this is why I believe in this so much, because your time, yes, you are going to put some time in when it's time to build your business. But once you get that thing set up, it's literally built to scale in a much easier way than you could scale, if I was doing the gumbo, if I was doing, any crafts that I like to do. So instead, I just do that stuff in my spare time. Everything you do doesn't have to be monetized. Okay. I digress. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. What are some of the things that you love to do, that you enjoy? Let me know in the chat. Like I said, nobody can out gumbo me. I love to make a good pot of gumbo. I love to craft. What are some of the things that you like to do? Some of the things that you've thought about becoming a side hustle for you? Because I legitimately considered those things as a side hustle. I went so far as buying domain names, creating logos, all the things, right? Starting social media accounts for some of these things. But at the end of the day, it's all about scalability, and it's all about maximizing the time, because time is precious, it is valuable, and we can't get it back. So what are some of those things? Let me know in the chat. What are some of the things that you've developed side hustles on? Photography, comes to mind for me. But here's something else that nobody talks about, and it's not strategy, it's identity in this thing, okay? Because I always say it is not about the money, even though we never want to minimize the importance of the money, because we want the money, right? Like, nobody's starting a side hustle or nobody's doing something outside of their 9 to 5 because they don't want to get paid. Because if you wanted to do that, you would just call it volunteer work, right? So the other thing that I want to talk about here is identity, because a lot of women, they attach their self-worth to whichever side hustle they pick, right? Because this is your baby. Like, I don't know any woman, any high achieving woman that decides that they are going to pick up something outside of their 9 to 5. And they're like, you know what? I don't care if this fails. Like, I want it to fail. I don't care if this is a success or not. No, you do something because you want it to be a success, right? And so you attach your self-worth to whatever the thing is, because it is your baby. But that attachment becomes the very thing that makes you quit too soon or pivot too fast. For example, if your candle business doesn't take off in 2 months, it doesn't just feel like a business that needs adjusting. It feels like, a shot at you or a referendum on you as a person, right? You start to question yourself. It's like, dang, am I not creative enough? Am I not business minded? Maybe I'm just not built for this. And none of that is true, y'all. But all of it is common. And it's because most of us were never taught the difference between an idea that doesn't work and the person not being capable, because those are not the same thing. And an idea can literally, it can completely fail while the person behind it remains just as capable. The person behind it is just as smart. The person behind it is just as resourceful as you have always been. Because those are not the same conversation, even though they get tangled together every single time a side hustle doesn't take off in the first try. Every single time it happens. And this is exactly why so many women cycle through idea after idea instead of building momentum behind one thing. That's the reason this happens. And it's not because you're flaky. I don't believe you're flaky. I believe that you're protecting yourself from another hit to an identity that has already absorbed too many hits The first 3 side hustles that you tried, right? Hit, hit, hit. Like you're protecting yourself. Now you're kind of callous. You're like, wait a minute. Now I'm a little gun shy. But here's the thing I want to leave you with on this one right here, this particular thing right here. The goal here was never to find the one idea that magically works the first time you try it. The goal is building something on a foundation that is solid enough that can adjust the idea without it taking your confidence down with it. Because that is a completely different way to approach building something on the side. Like it's literally the difference between a woman who tries one thing and disappears and a woman who keeps building no matter what the first few attempts looks like. I think about this in terms of what gets carried forward between attempts, right? So you try something, doesn't work out in the first 2 months, so you quit. So when a woman quits her side hustle because she's convinced it says something about her worth, she walks away with nothing but that loss, right? And that's why she gets gun shy. The skill you practiced to do that, like if I started my gumbo business on the side of my job, right? And it didn't take off in 2 months. And I know my gumbo is fire, but it doesn't take off in 2 months. And I know my gumbo is fire. I know I have the skills, right? But it's not selling. That makes me feel some kind of way, right? That would make you feel some kind of way. Like I am making this gumbo, I am practicing it. I am that skill that I'm using. I am pouring my heart and all of my love into this gumbo, right? I'm building audience around it. I am testing it in the market. But when I quit, all of that gets thrown out along with the idea because I felt like it didn't pan out. Because in my mind, the whole thing was, it's like a referendum on me, right? But actually, it's data. It's data about the structure. Because when you start to separate your identity from the outcome of any one attempt, anything that you try, something different happens. Because every idea that doesn't take off, it still leaves you with information. So even if I tried the gumbo thing and it didn't take off, I would still have data. I would still have information. I would be able to learn what people said yes to without hesitation and what they hesitated on. I would be able to learn what felt easy to talk about and what felt forced. I would be able to learn where my energy was authentic and where it felt like I was performing excitement and enthusiasm that I didn't really feel. So my point here is even if you've had multiple attempts at side hustles, none of it is wasted, y'all. Even when your idea gets retired, because the thing about it is you carry all of it, all of those learnings, all of that data, all of that information, you carry all of it directly into whatever it is that you build next. Whatever it is that you build next. I have done all the things. I have done all the things. And I have taken all of those learnings into her income edit. And this right here, when I say her income edit is something that not only am I passionate about, but it has taken all of the learnings from all the things that I've done and I have put it into her income edit, right? And it's the same with you. All the things that you've ever done, it just goes with you. And that's the version of resilience that compounds for you. It's not refusing to fail. Like, I'm not going to fail, right? But refusing to let any single attempt define what you're capable of and going forward with that thing. So there is another piece of this that I want to walk you through because it looks like a smart strategy, on the surface, and it's one of the main reasons that side hustles stall out. So many women spend the first several months of a new side hustle building an audience before they've ever built an offer. It doesn't matter what it is that you're selling. So many women spend too much time focused on building their audience before they've built whatever the thing is that they're selling. They tell themselves that they need more followers first. They need to have some content. They need some type of presence first. And then somewhere down the road, they'll figure out what to sell once enough people are watching them. And I'm not going to lie, I understand it because it feels responsible. It feels like the safe and the patient way to do your side hustle. I mean, because after all, you do have a 9 to 5. That's why it's a side hustle. So, there's no rush for this, right? But here's the problem with that though. An audience without something to sell is just a room full of people watching you and they don't have anything to buy. So you can have 10,000 people following you and they're nodding at your post, they're commenting fire emojis under every single one of your photos, and you can still make $0 because attention is not the same thing as income. Attention is just the room filling up. But whatever it is that you're selling, that is the only thing that turns that room into revenue. And me personally, I would rather have 30 people who know exactly what I sell and exactly who it's for than 30,000 people who like my content and have no idea there's something that I have to sell at all. So this is why building your offer first changes everything. Because once you know exactly what transformation you're selling and exactly who needs it most, your content stops being random and it starts being a constant, natural invitation towards one thing. And that is the thing that you're selling. So you're not guessing what to post anymore because everything you create, it either builds trust toward the thing that you're selling or it directly explains the thing that you're selling. And your audience at that point, it starts to grow around your offer instead of your offer just getting bolted onto an audience after the fact and then hoping that it sticks with them. So if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. I want you to write down content without an offer behind it is just a very expensive hobby with good lighting. If you are on here to make $1, you have to have something to sell. You have to have something to sell. So I want to talk about one more pattern because I see it all the time and almost nobody connects it back to why side hustles underperform. So imagine, just picture, close your eyes, imagine, picture this. A woman sees someone else's business and that business is doing really, really well online. So whether it's a planner shop on Etsy, whether it's a coaching business, whether it's a digital product that seems to be everywhere, you see the business it looks like it's flourishing, right? And so you essentially copy that model. You funnel hack. So you work backwards, you sign up for all the things and you get all the emails and you're like, okay, this is what she's doing. So I'm going to copy exactly what she's doing, not word for word, but I'm just going to copy, the structure of what she's doing. You copy that model. So you create the same kind of offer. You have the same kind of price point because again, remember, this is a flourishing business that you're seeing. You start posting the same type of content. It's just with your name on it instead of hers, right? And it feels like a shortcut because you funnel hacked. And because it worked for her, you feel like it should work for you, right? But here's the thing about a business model. It's not a recipe that you can just Google or ask AI or, I have a cookbook that I made, our family cookbook. It's not a recipe that you can just pass down and recreate that recipe with different ingredients. Like that's not what a business model is. So the woman whose model you're copying, she built credibility around that specific topic through her own experience. She is sharing her own story. Her audience already trusts her for a very specific reason. And so when you copy the outer shell without the foundation underneath it, you end up selling something that looks identical on the surface, but it doesn't have the trust. It doesn't have the same lived experience. It doesn't have the same specific positioning that made that original that you copied, that original model. It doesn't have the same specific positioning that makes the original convert. And this is exactly why so many copied side hustles plateau immediately, while the original thing that you copied, it keeps growing, because it was never really about the product. It was about who was standing behind the product and why people believed that person in the first place. I mean, this person who copied the model, they believed this person so much that they funnel hacked and they tried to reverse engineer what they were doing, right? That's how much this person trusted them. But here's the thing, you don't need someone else's business model. You don't need somebody else's business model. You need your own evidence that's packaged into something that nobody else can claim, because nobody else has lived your exact version of getting through whatever the thing is. Right? Like, there is nobody like you in this entire world, period. And that's the part that copying can never replicate. No matter how closely you believe that you're following someone else's template by watching them and reverse engineering what they're doing. Nobody is you. What did I say? You are you, and that is your superpower. And that's real. That is real talk. So there's something else that is standing between a lot of women and their first dollar, and it has nothing to do with the idea. Like, again, what I'm talking about here is not the ideas that you have. You could have 100 different ideas and have tried 100 different side hustles, but that's not what I'm talking about here. I've already talked about identity, right? I've talked about structure a little bit. It has nothing to do with the idea. So the other thing that I want to talk about is the belief that everything has to look finished and perfect before you're allowed to launch it. Like, your logo has to be perfect. Your website needs to be tweaked a little bit more. Your offer needs one more round of polishing before it's ready for anyone else to see, right? And here's the thing. While you're doing all those things, months go by, quarters go by, years go by. And the thing that was supposed to make you money this quarter is still sitting in draft mode, getting more beautiful. Oh, it's pretty. That thing is gorgeous, but it's not profitable. It's getting less profitable every single week. See, the reason that this happens is because polish feels a whole lot safer than proof. Polish is something that you can control by yourself. You can do it all by yourself in a silo. You can do it in your kitchen, at your kitchen table. You can do it on the couch in your living room. You could do it at midnight. You can do it without anyone watching, anybody judging, or anybody saying no to you, right? But proof requires you to put something imperfect, something that is not perfect, in front of people, and then finding out if that thing solves what you think it solves. And that right there is uncomfortable in a way that perfecting a logo will never be. So a lot of women, they default to the version of working on the business that feels productive, but never risks anything in that. And this is the part that I slow down, because what I'm about to say, this is really the part that nobody really likes to hear. And that is, a polished offer that's never been tested, it teaches you nothing. But a rough offer, a rough draft that's been put in front of 3 people, it teaches you everything you need to know before you spend another month refining something that might not even be the right thing to refine. Okay? Because done and tested, it beats perfect and theory every single time money is on the line. Every single time you want to make money, Done and tested beats perfect every single time. And so I mentioned it just a little bit a few moments ago, and I don't know if you caught it in all of my candle references and gumbo talk and crafts and Etsy stores and selling clothes, and that is coaching. The word coaching, because when people hear that word, they tend to picture something separate from everything that we've talked about here. They tend to picture coaching like it's its own category with its own rules, right? And I would argue that coaching directly solves nearly every single problem that we covered so far. And that is not a coincidence. It is exactly why it works, in my opinion and in my experience, why coaching works best as a second stream of income in a way that candles and clothes and crafts, it just structurally can't. Doing hair, I think I talked about that earlier too. Coaching, it does it. I mean, it's just more viable because coaching doesn't ask you to convince someone they have a problem. Because the women who come to coaching, they already know what they're stuck on. So they're not browsing. They're literally actively searching for someone who's already solved the thing that they are currently in the middle of. They are in the thick of it. Coaching doesn't trap you in a 1-to-1 time ceiling, right? Remember the example I gave about doing 100 heads of hair? So coaching doesn't trap you in that 1-to-1 ceiling the way that hourly work does, because the value you're offering is your packaged experience and your ability to guide someone through whatever the thing is. It's not a finite stack of physical inventory that you have to keep restocking. So remember, I calculated the expense of starting the gumbo business. Like, you cannot make gumbo without high quality ingredients. You have to keep restocking that. Where are you storing it? Coaching doesn't have that problem. And coaching doesn't require you to invent a brand new identity or pretend to be an expert in something that you've never lived. It asks you to package something you already are an expert in because you have already survived it. You have already built it, or you have already figured it out the hard way. And you've done this over years of lived experience that you've already been through. So the skills that already got you through your life and your career are the same skills that someone else would pay a premium to borrow from you. And that's the part most women miss when they're staring at a blank page, trying to figure out what their thing could be, right? Like, you don't have to reinvent, you don't have to invent something new. Your coaching business, your side hustle, it doesn't have to be the most revolutionary thing that nobody's ever heard of, because you've already built the thing. It's sitting inside everything you've navigated for the last decade. It just hasn't been packaged into something sellable yet. And that is the reason I didn't sell gumbo on the side. That is the reason I didn't start, I love to bling. I didn't start selling bling shoes or t-shirts or whatever the thing is. That's the reason why my Cricut and my heat press are not used for an Etsy shop. All those reasons that I just said, that is the reason why I went back to coaching. And I want to challenge something that trips up almost every woman before she even starts. Because so much advice out here, it tells you that you need to find your niche first. Have you ever heard that you need to find your niche first in order to get into coaching? If you have heard that, I want you to give this video a thumbs up, drop a number 1 in the chat. Let me know. Have you heard that advice? So much advice. It tells you to find your niche first. It tells you to pick your perfect audience, right? Avatars. Have you heard you need to figure out your avatar? You need to narrow down. You need to get specific. And you need to do all these things before you're allowed to move forward with anything, right? And I understand why that advice exists, but it puts the cart so far in front of the horse that women spend months stuck in research mode instead of building something. Your niche isn't something you have to invent from nothing. You already have your niche. It is usually hiding inside the question that people are already asking you, and you're answering that question for free. So I want you to think about what people pull you aside for. What are some of those things? What do they text you about at 11 o'clock at night? What are your coworkers coming to find you for when something is falling apart at work? What is that thing? Because that pattern, it is already pointing directly at your niche. So it's not something that you have to go find. You don't have to manufacture it, your niche. You don't have to manufacture a niche in a notebook or on a worksheet. All you have to do is you have to notice what's already happening around you and then finally take it seriously. Like, that's it. And this is the part where so many side hustles get stuck before they even launch, because the woman behind them is waiting to feel like an expert in some textbook sense before she'll let herself start in this industry. While at the same time, the women already getting paid for coaching right now aren't necessarily more qualified than you. They simply stopped waiting for a feeling of readiness that was never going to arrive by itself, and they packaged what they already knew instead of waiting to feel ready. Because here's the truth. Readiness is not a feeling that is going to come because you're waiting for it. Ready is a decision that you make before that feeling shows up. And I want to take just a step back for a second, because I don't want this conversation to live only in the world of side hustle strategy without addressing the bigger reason that all of this matters in the first place. So this past March, I've been very transparent about it on this platform specifically. This past March, my own role got eliminated on a random Wednesday morning with a 15-minute calendar invite. And it wasn't because I had done anything wrong. I had done nothing wrong. The org chart got redrawn, and I just happened to be sitting in a box that got disappeared on that org chart. And this is literally years of me doing everything right. I have an advanced degree. My performance reviews were stellar. I loved that company. I used to say I was the company's biggest cheerleader, literally. Love that company, could do no wrong. It had taught me so much. It literally had changed my life. This company did. But none of that came with a guarantee, because employment never was designed to come with a guarantee. And I'm telling you this because I don't think my story is rare. I believe that most of us are one calendar invite away from finding out exactly how exposed our financial life has been this whole time, which is resting entirely on a single paycheck from one single employer. And that right there, that is the deeper reason a second stream of income matters so much more than another candle business ever could. Because this is not about chasing extra spending money. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about no longer being one bad Wednesday away from starting completely over. Because multiple streams of income aren't a luxury that's reserved for people chasing a flashier lifestyle. And I know the internet might have you thinking that, but that's not what this is about. This is about safety, plain and simple, simple and plain. And safety is something every working woman deserves to build for herself, regardless of how stable your job looks right now. Your 9-to-5 was never meant to be your only plan, especially in these days and times. The economy right now is crazy. So your 9-to-5, it shouldn't be your only plan. But I believe your 9-to-5 was only ever supposed to be your first plan. And I want to say something else that doesn't get said enough in these particular conversations, and that is safety isn't only about what happens in the worst case scenario. It's about how different you move through your everyday life, simply knowing you have something else underneath you that can support you. Because at that point, you start to negotiate different. because staying isn't your only option. You start speaking up in meetings differently when your identity and your income aren't both sitting in the same single basket. You stop tolerating things that you have been low key tolerating for years. And you haven't been tolerating it because, or you don't stop tolerating it because you have some sudden burst of courage. You stop tolerating it because the financial fear that was keeping you quiet and silent, it finally has somewhere else to go. And that's the part most people skip when they talk about multiple streams of income. They make it sound like the whole point of building multiple streams of income and having these side hustles is about the extra deposit that hits your bank account. And let's be clear, I said it earlier in this conversation, I say it all the time. The deposit matters. The money matters. I will never minimize money. I like money. I like it. I like, getting regular recurring deposits in my bank account. I like my lifestyle. But the bigger shift is what happens to a woman's posture, what happens to her decisions, what happens to her sense of self once she's no longer one bad meeting away from losing everything that you have worked so hard to build. That's the bigger, deeper reasoning behind all of this. And there is a difference between hustling and building. And most side hustles, they live completely in the hustling side. Hustling is constant motion. It has no structure underneath it. A new idea, new platform, new pivot, repeat, exhausted, repeat again, right? New idea, new platform, new pivot, repeat, exhausted, repeat again. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm going back to the gumbo. Had I started a gumbo business, and maybe I'll do it in retirement when I just have all the time in the world. But had I started a gumbo business, y'all, working day and night, like for real, got me working. And that is not the life that I want right now. I only have so many hours, and I don't want to cap those hours by stirring the gumbo pot because I have orders to fill. Okay, building. I'm talking about the difference between hustling and building. Building is slower at first, y'all, but it compounds because it's standing on something that is solid instead of something that is getting rebuilt from scratch every few months. So coaching, when it's packaged correctly, it is building. It's not one more idea thrown at the wall to see what sticks. It's taking the experience that you already have, the kind that you cannot fake, the kind that you cannot shortcut, and finally giving that experience the structure that it needs to become income instead of staying invisible labor that you've been giving away for free for years. You're already coaching. You are already coaching. Every single client that I have ever worked with within the walls of my business, they have already been coaching for free for years. And anybody under the sound of my voice, you have been coaching for free for years. And I want you to clearly hear this. You are not behind. You're not behind. You were just never given the structure that turns experience into income. And that is not the same thing as not having what it takes. You have what it takes. You're not behind. You've been coaching for free for years. And the women who finally build a second stream of income are not the ones with the most side hustle attempts behind them. You might have a bunch of attempts, but they're not always the one who decide to finally build that second stream of income. The ones who decide to finally build that second stream of income, they're the ones who finally stopped treating their own skills like they were common sense and started treating them like the asset that they've always been. Your skills are assets. And that is exactly why I built and created 2K in 2 hours. Because I kept watching capable, smart, High achieving women cycle through side hustle after side hustle after side hustle, and each one is just collapsing under the same structural problems that we just walked through in this conversation, in this episode. Built around the wrong thing, capped by time for money, trading time for money, capped at that ceiling. Tangled up in an identity crisis every time that side hustle wobbled, stuck waiting to feel like an expert before they'd even let themselves start. And here's the thing, 2K in 2 hours, it exists to skip all of that, y'all. Inside, it's a micro course. And inside, I walk you through finding the skill that you already have. I walk you through packaging that skill into a coaching offer built around a problem people are already trying to solve. I walk you through positioning that offer around the transformation that people will pay for instead of the information that they can already find for free. People are not paying for information anymore. You can get information all over the place. And this isn't about adding a 6th headstone to your side hustle graveyard. This right here, what I'm talking about, is about building the one thing that is designed to hold weight from the beginning, from the very moment you start. It is about using everything you already know. It is about taking 2 focused hours of work, not 2 more years of trial and error. That's what I'm talking about. And so if any part of today's conversation felt like I was describing something that you have lived, I want you to go check out 2K in 2 hours. You can learn more about this micro course on my website at herincomeedit.com/2K, or there is a link down in the description if you're watching on YouTube. Because at the end of the day, another side hustle is not going to be the answer for you. A second stream of income that is built on something you already know how to do, that right there is the answer. And it has been sitting inside of you the entire time. Like I said, you are not behind. You already have what it takes. You don't have to wait any longer for permission. Because the thing is, all of the skills that you already have, they just might be waiting for someone to finally hand you the structure instead of one more idea to try. And 2K in 2 hours is that structure. And if you're walking away from this conversation with even one idea that you've been sitting on, something that might be sitting in your notes app or sitting in a half-built website that you haven't touched in months, I want you to ask yourself one more time before you click off this video, was the idea ever really the problem? Or is it the structure underneath the idea? Whatever side hustle idea you have, is the idea the problem or is it the structure? Because once you can honestly answer that question, you'll stop needing a 6th idea. You just need to build the one that you already have. You just need to build the one that you already have. Listen, I want to, hello. Thanks for joining. I see no questions, comments, or feedback in the chat. Thank you so much for the love. Happy Monday. Happy new week. I hope you found something valuable in this conversation. If you found something valuable in this conversation, let a sister know. Let me know. Thanks so much to each and every one of you that popped in and out of today's conversation. This has been another episode of Nick at Noon. My name is Nick Scott, and I am here live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon Mountain Time. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, turn your notifications on so you do not miss a beat. And I will see y'all in the next, okay? Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see y'all on Wednesday. Bye.